Welcome back to Introduction to Abnormal Psychology. This is Module 1, Lecture 7. Today we're going to talk about the sociocultural model of abnormal psychology. Right away, we see that this model is a significant departure from all the models we've discussed until now. The biological, psychodynamic, cognitive behavioral, and humanistic models all look at processes occurring within the individual that ultimately lead to psychological abnormality. Even though they may incorporate ideas about external factors, for example, the psychodynamic model talks about early childhood experiences, and the humanistic model talks about unconditional positive regard by early caregivers, they nonetheless look at the impact of external forces and events on the internal experience of a person. And they explain psychological abnormality as a disruption in some internal process, whether it is a neurotransmitter levels in the brain, internal conflicts, illogical thought patterns, or a lack of self-actualization. The sociocultural model is very different in that its focus is on the world outside the individual, the family, the society, the culture in which the individual lives, and the role the outside world plays in this development and designation of psychological abnormality. This model states that the outside world, whether it is the small world of the family or the large world of the culture, possesses many rules which people must follow. Rules about behavior, thoughts, and feelings. These rules are often referred to as norms because they determine what is normal for an individual in a particular family, society, or culture. The sociocultural model asserts that we must consider these norms when trying to make sense of a person's thoughts, feelings, and behavior, and that an understanding of these norms is critical when considering the issue of psychological abnormality. Let's spend some time thinking about this word, culture. Its focus is on the world outside the individual, the family, the society, the entire context in which the individual lives, and the role the outside world plays in the development and designation of psychological abnormality. Culture encompasses not only what food we eat, but how we eat it, what clothes we wear, what language we use and how we use it, what music we listen to, what our religious and moral beliefs are, how we behave eating dinner at home versus out at a restaurant, and on and on and on. We can come up with examples of culture all day. Culture encompasses all of the values, attitudes, beliefs, history, and ways of behaving that are shared by a particular group of people and are communicated from one generation to the next. The sociocultural model asserts that people are labeled as psychologically abnormal when their behavior violates some set of external rules, whether it's the rules of their family, their school, their community, or their larger culture. If you can recall Lecture 1 in this module, we discussed an example of a person engaging in aggressive behavior. In a society valuing competition and individual achievement, this behavior may be considered normative and even desirable. In a society valuing compassion, cooperation, and the collective good, this very same behavior may be labeled abnormal. The sociocultural model insists we can only understand the aggressive behavior and the person engaging in it when we take into account their larger context and all the rules it imposes on them. The sociocultural model asserts that when we consider a person's internal experience and external behavior, we must take into account their experiences as a member of their family, community, and culture. We must also consider the ways in which individual factors, such as the person's gender, race, religion, ethnicity, sexual orientation, interact with the larger world of their family, community, and culture. This includes considering the impact of discrimination within a society. If a person experiences prejudice, discrimination, or violence related to their race, ethnicity, religion, gender identity, or sexual orientation, for example, these experiences can contribute to various forms of psychological distress, such as depression, anxiety, or post-traumatic stress disorder, all of which we will discuss in upcoming modules. So what does sociocultural treatment look like? Many different forms of treatment align with this model, including traditional individual psychotherapy if it's conducted in a particular way. let's take a moment to consider a few forms of treatment. A family therapist works with an entire family unit, even if there's only one member of the family who's been identified as experiencing psychological abnormality. The family therapist believes the problem lies in the way the family members are interacting with each other, and this is the focus of treatment, rather than the specific ways the so-called sick member is feeling, thinking, or behaving. A couples therapist conducts treatment in a similar way. If a partnered couple is experiencing difficulties in the relationship, the couples therapist does not seek to discover which person's the problem. Rather, the therapist assumes the problem lies in the way the two people are interacting with each other, and the therapist treats them as a single unit. The problem is in the partnership, not in a single person. Community treatment can take the form of primary prevention, which involves a deep understanding of the external factors that produce psychological abnormality in people, and a broad effort to bring about improvements in those factors in order to prevent those psychological problems from occurring. For example, college students may struggle with large amounts of academic stress that may lead them to develop anxiety. A primary prevention approach might seek to convince their professors to lighten their academic load or give fewer exams. Or it may seek to teach students ways to better cope with stress, with the ultimate goal of preventing the anxiety from ever developing. Other forms of community treatment allow therapists to work with their clients right in their environments, their homes, their workplaces, or their local communities. This allows the therapist to better understand the ways in which the client's unique environments are contributing to their psychological struggles. It also allows the therapist to work directly with the client to develop ways to manage these external stressors better. In traditional individual therapy, in which a therapist and client meet in an office and pursue treatment through a series of one-to-one conversations, a sociocultural approach can still be used. In this case, the therapist is very diligent about learning as much as possible about the client's unique individual context, the combination of their gender, ethnicity, race, religion, sexual orientation, physical ability, etc., and how these factors impact the client's experience in the world, and how their experience in the world has impacted their internal experience. It is equally important for the therapist to be sensitive to the impact of his or her own culture and identity on their relationship with their client, and how their own culture and identity impact their understanding of the client. The sociocultural model brings a critically important perspective to the understanding of psychological abnormality, but it is not without its drawbacks. While research has demonstrated links between external factors and psychological abnormality, it cannot definitively identify these external factors as the cause. Another drawback is that this model cannot predict the development of psychological abnormality in individuals. In other words, two people may experience the same set of external circumstances, but only one may go on to develop a psychological disorder. In this way, the model is incomplete. A major strength of the model, however, is that it serves as an excellent adjunct to any of the other major models we've discussed. Whether you're a proponent of the biological, psychodynamic, cognitive behavioral, or humanistic model of psychological abnormality, utilizing a sociocultural model in conjunction with it will elevate your understanding of human psychology and psychological disorders. This concludes our introduction to the concept of abnormality and the major models used to understand it. What's the best model? While some models have clear advantages over others, each one has much to offer the field of abnormal psychology. For that reason, let's not think in terms of which is the best one. Instead, let's approach our study of psychological abnormality with an openness to utilizing any of these models, or any combination of them, to help us understand the development and treatment of the disorder we are considering. As I told you in the first lecture, the concept of psychological abnormality is complex and often the object of much discussion and debate. The next lecture, which will be the final one in Module 1, is the first lecture in the Foundation of Empathy series. We will be looking at the concept of good mental health and the connection to coping strategies. Modules 2 through 5 will cover 4 major experiences of psychological abnormality. Each module will conclude with a Foundations of Empathy lecture. As we move through the course, remember to bear in mind the concepts we've discussed up until now and think about how they will apply to each type of experience.